There's so much information, which is wonderful, but I think that it's doing a lot of people a disservice because they're looking for that quick fix because that's the way that things are being sold.
I couldn't agree more. People are frozen with too much information. They're having a hard time discerning what is for them, what is not for them, what is rooted in truth and, genuine care and consideration and what is not. I think that there's so much noise that it reminds me of being in a room and everyone shouting and you kind of shut down. It's like I can't hear anything well. I can hear a lot of noise, but I'm not picking up on anyone's message. And I feel like that's the overall consensus that I'm getting from even the holistic health community. It's easy to say it's influencers, it's, functional medicine, but really the holistic health community is falling prey to it. And so now people are more confused than ever. They're frozen in fear. They're having a hard time finding messages that are for them.
Welcome to Hopeful and Wholesome, the show where ambitious women come home to their bodies. I'm your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm a functional practitioner, human design guide, and expert on all things energy, and your partner in decoding the language of your body. This is your space to reconnect with your body's wisdom, reclaim your energy, and rise into alignment in your health, your business, and your life. Because thriving isn't about pushing harder, it's about learning to listen deeper. So let's dive in because your next breakthrough starts right now. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show Jess and Ashley. They are two health practitioners, moms, and best friends trying to navigate the world of holistic health in a balanced, productive way that brings health to our lives instead of dogmatic extremes. In their podcast, Wellness Reality Check, they break down health trends, interview your favorite health influencers, and always keep it real. Their hope is that their podcast brings listeners back down to earth, providing a dose of reality in the often idealized world of health and wellness. And I'm so excited to bring Jess and Ashley both on the show today. I had the honor of being on their podcast I was just talking about, Wellness Reality Check. I'll put the link to that in the show notes so y'all can go check it out. But we are really diving into really all the misconceptions and myths and really, honestly, some dangerous trends that are going on in the holistic health space and really how to sort through all the noise and information because we know there is so much out there and how to get down to the bottom of what really is true health. Like what is true health? What is holistic health? What does it look like for you? And what it looks like to really own those bio-individual approaches to healing. So it's not this like one size fits all cookie cutter thing of mishmash information that we don't know is really true or accurate. Now, this is a real conversation here. We're talking about some often controversial things, sharing some controversial opinions and takes on what's going on in the health space and holistic health space. So if you're in the mood to maybe have your world shaken or at least open yourself up to maybe some different perspectives, this episode is going to be amazing. So let's jump in. Here with Jess and Ashley. And we were just saying before I hit record, ironically enough, my interview on their podcast came out today on the day we're recording this. So all in divine timing. This is so fun. Thanks for hanging out with me today, you guys.
Thanks for having us on. It's been fun having you on our podcast and now being on yours.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have both of y'all here together. And I love being on your podcast. Like the three of us are so aligned and just our viewpoints and schools of thought on so many things. And I love all the things that y'all talk about in y'all's podcast. And I wanted to just jump straight in and give both of y'all a chance to answer this question. But I wanted to start with like the big... It's a pretty big question. And because I've been talking about this a lot lately, and I know we talked about it on y'all's show, but I know I have some qualms with like the wellness space and like kind of when it comes to healing chronic illness. And so I would just love for each of y'all's individual take on this. And you can answer this as broadly or however you want to answer it. But what do each of you see as the biggest issues right now in the wellness space when it comes to healing chronic illness, chronic disease?
Gosh, I mean, I think for me, it's just Instagram in general. Like, I think that there's just so much noise. And I don't know if y'all agree with this, but I just feel like in the past, like, honestly, year, like, it's just gotten so much worse with like links and selling And the way that the algorithm is playing to that is like, that's what gets pushed is like, if you want to learn my 5-step method to healing my autoimmune disease, like comment autoimmune or whatever, and it's like you get someone's information. It's like the most basic thing, or it's everything is just so contradictory. And I just feel like people are very desperate and there's so much information, which is wonderful. But I think that it's doing a lot of people a disservice because they're looking for that quick fix because that's the way that things are being sold.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like people are frozen with too much information. They're having a hard time discerning what is for them, what is not for them, what is rooted in truth and, genuine care and consideration and what is not. I think that there's so much noise that it reminds me of being in a room and everyone shouting and you kind of shut down. It's like, I can't hear anything well. I can hear a lot of noise, but I'm not picking up on anyone's message. And I feel like that's the overall consensus that I'm getting from even the holistic health community. It's easy to say it's influencers, it's, functional medicine, but really the holistic health community is falling prey to it. And so now people are more confused than ever. They're frozen in fear. They're having a hard time finding messages that are for them. Like Jess said, it's that instant gratification. It's that quick fix that everyone wants. And I have deep compassion for that. If we were able to help clients that way, I think that we would be millionaires,
Well, people are becoming millionaires because people are buying all this stuff. And like, I'm sure half of it's not even used by the purchaser, but it's just such a big business. And unfortunately, fear is what the algorithm loves and what's pushed. And I think people, I don't know, I feel like fear was like really big with like when toxins were like everything. And I think that message is kind of quieted. But I don't know, I still think it's just like the loudest voices always have like the most groundbreaking, news on like what's going to heal you. And like nothing ever changes of like what that actually is that heals you. And it's like quieting that noise and, learning the basics and sticking to the basics and foundations and, learning about yourself and coming home to yourself. It's never a supplement. And I think that it's like, how many times are we going to continue to play this game? And now it's peptides. And, it's just like you watch and there's just always a new trend and it gets very loud and then it shifts very quickly.
And I think people are picking up on that. Like I was telling some friends this weekend that I think people are picking up on those trends. And so they're a little gun shy. It's like, is this just a passing phase? Is this something that's going to stick around? Is this something for me? Is this something that, I can benefit from? And it's really hard to check all those boxes when you're not grounded in yourself.
And I think I used to play this game too. And I think a lot of us have that have been on the Instagram chronic illness world for a while, is that we all kind of get really excited about something. That's what everyone's talking about. And then it shifts really quickly. And I know I used to do that. Like first it was this and that was my thing. And then it was going to be that. And then it's that. And like, I've just totally learned that it's never that thing and might be a combination of things. And I've really stopped that with my message because I just think, I know for myself, like, it's like, how many times are we going to fall for this, in the wellness world, that this is the newest, latest and greatest thing. Like when everybody just always goes back to the same foundational things that actually work,
Yeah. And that was going to be, that was the next thing I wanted to ask, because two parts. What do you see as like, cause it's a slippery slope, right? And I feel like where we are right now, it's a really slippery slope and we could easily keep going down so I guess what I want to know is, what do you see is like, what could happen if we keep going in this trajectory? Like worst case scenario, like what is the end result on people's health? And then two, and Jessica, you kind of alluded to it, but just what does it look like? Like you were saying, Jess, like, coming back to yourself, like what does it look like to go back the other way? Like for us to really figure out what the thing is.
I feel like it's
like AI becoming like so big. And like, for me, I just get this feeling of like, I don't know, like dystopian. That's where my mind goes, that I just feel like, especially like I said before, and this has been a big conversation on my own page lately, is like all the GLP-1s and stuff like that. And like, I just see these people like trying to shift their body into like these really unrealistic bodies. And, you know, we're creating now this standard that is quote unquote health when it's not real and genuine. It's like, what are you going to do when you stop taking those? And so like, I don't know. I see that that's the wave. Like that is what people are buying into. People around me that are not even in the wellness world, they're trying to quote unquote get healthy and get a kickstart by starting these GLP-1s and the growth hormones. And I'm just like, I'm sitting back with my popcorn because it can't. Nothing that's too good to be true is ever going to end up well.
Right.
And I feel like it's leading a lot of people further down a path of away from those foundations that we love to talk about. And those foundations are you getting water? Are you getting rest? Are you getting sun? Are you getting movement? You know,
I just see this interesting thing with the longevity movement of like, you know, now if you're 40, we should be looking 25. And if you're 50, you should be looking 35. And it's like, let's just like, can we, you know, because I'm again with these GLP-1s and the women that are, you know, now it's going to be like these crazy things to put on muscle. And, you know, it's just like, when are we going to accept that? Like when we hit a certain age, like that body type just isn't realistic, you know, or maybe having hormones that you had when you were 20 is not realistic. And it's like, we might need to start accepting that like there isn't a hack, you know?
Yeah. People, I mean, it goes back to what we were saying of like that quick fix and that instant gratification. And instead of coming home to yourself, accepting where you're at. And if you get so far down a path, it's unfortunate, but you're creating more problems for yourself. It's like now we've got to go back and kind of clear the weeds and fix what has been trying to be done in an unhealthy way. And it's frustrating as a practitioner because it's just like, my gosh, I feel like sometimes I'm the cleanup crew, you know, like, okay, let's clean up this insane supplement list that you're on. Let's clean up this fear. Let's clean up these unrealistic ideas about health. Let's clean up, you know, all of the misinformation and the noise. And it's unfortunately not super glamorous to come back to yourself. It takes a lot of, you know, examining the emotions and the mental and spiritual clutter from your backpack that you're carrying around with you every day. And people don't want to do that type of work. They want to pop inject a GLP-1 and call it a day and say, oh, I've never been happier because now I've got the body that I've always wanted, when it's like, is that actually getting to the emotional root cause of why you are not showing up for yourself, why you can't accept yourself? When you were on our podcast, Hope, you talked a lot about worthiness, and I've been doing mind, body, spirit release sessions with some of my clients, and worthiness is something that comes up a ton. And I know that I can really relate to that. That's been a huge piece of my healing puzzle. And so it's unfortunate that people go down this path seeking health and healing when in essence, it's getting them further away.
Yeah. I was on a podcast last week and we were talking about the worthiness piece because she was asking, you know, what do you think are the main emotional components that are driving, you know, chronic disease stuff? And honestly, I think, I don't want to say all because I don't like to speak in generalizations, but I would say 99.9% of the time, it's always worthiness. Now it comes in different forms, right? It's dressed in different costumes, but it always comes down to that. And you answered the question I was going to ask. I think that, you know, people who go down the path like we're talking about, they're, you know, let's do the injectables or let's try this trend or whatever. And they feel like, oh, the foundations. Nobody wants to talk about the foundations. Like it's boring. Like it's not the sexy thing boring. People want to talk about. Yeah. And so they're like, oh, it doesn't, you know, the foundations that, you know, I've tried all the things and that doesn't work. But really, like, especially to your point, Ashley, like, have you really tried all the things? Have you gone to the depths of these emotional things that, you know?
That's what, like, I've been really struggling with when people have been commenting on the things that I'm talking about or I'm reading. Like, Ashley would send me, like, some things that are popping up on our algorithm now because we're talking about these injectables and stuff. But I did everything and, like, I need this kickstart. And it's like, I'm even looking at someone that I know in my own life that it's like, I did everything and, like, I can't lose this weight and stuff. And it's just like, there's so many things that you're not doing. And it's like, it takes a lot of change and it's going to be uncomfortable and things that you don't want to give up. Like, don't say you did everything, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, I saw this article yesterday, the day before yesterday, and I thought we were, as a collective, we were going in a really good way. Like, okay, we're talking about healthier bodies and healthier, all different shapes. And now it's this trend where everybody looks like they're dying. And And
when did that shift?
I know. And I feel like it happened like that.
I feel like I turn around and this has all changed so much. And it's really interesting. My husband actually did tirzepatide last spring, and I'm not going to tell him what he can or can't do in his body, but he got a glow up, and it really hit me recently. And I actually it really was a big deal in our marriage. And I was like, this is not fair. You could have stopped drinking. You could have stopped eating like a piece of shit on the weekends. There's so many things that you could have done to quote unquote jumpstart. And I've been working on myself and my health so hard for so long, and you get to inject something for 1 month and have this huge transformation. And it was something we really had to work through. And he's like, well, I can't change it now. But I'm like, do you see how this is triggering for me? Can you imagine if I just started not even really telling you that I was doing it and injecting myself, and my body totally changed, and that's all I did? I'm sorry, it's not fair.
Hey, y'all, we'll get right back to the episode. But first, let me ask you this. You've built a vision that others admire, and you've built something that you're really proud of. But behind the scenes, your body feels like it's lagging behind. It just can't quite catch up to your brilliance and your mission that you have. That late night second wind, the foggy mornings, the hormone shifts, the endless push and forcing. You can't strategize your way out of that. And you already know you don't need more supplements. You don't need another supplement stack. You also don't need another side hustle disguised as self-care, because nobody wants to have their health as a side hustle. This is about recalibrating your entire ecosystem. And that's why I created the Quantum Reset, a premium 3-month high-touch healing experience for visionary women who are ready to feel as powerful in their bodies as they do in their business. Inside, we decode your nervous system, your minerals, your hormones. We read your labs like the sacred text that it is, so we have actual answers. And then we pair that with deep energetic recalibration, subconscious release. We use gene keys, we use human design, and true embodied healing. This isn't about fixing burnout, because that's not what we're doing here. This is about becoming the woman whose body is powerful, whose body is completely electric, whose energy, clarity, radiance finally matches the size of her mission. If you know your success isn't meant to cost you your vitality, and you're ready for a science-backed, spirit-led reset, then the Quantum Reset is your invitation. So check the link in the show notes or send me a message on Instagram, and let's bring your body back online with your brilliance. Now, let's get back to the show.
And I think it's triggering for a lot of people that have worked so hard to find acceptance and surrender.
Yes.
And peace with their body. And, Jess and I always talk about this because this is, a topic and a trend right now. And we're like, what happened with all the body positive? There's so many memes going around where people are working out and they're like, so I guess the whole body positive movement wasn't actually real. It's just people weren't willing to do the work. Yeah. And like you say, that work is not necessarily glamorous. When I started mineral balancing a couple of years ago, I gained a lot of weight and I couldn't figure it out. And I would have killed for a quick fix, but I knew that's not what was going to solve my issues. And unfortunately, or fortunately, my issue was twofold. It was a really taxed metabolism, and it was me being bloated with all the things I wanted to say, all the shit I was carrying around, all the pretending that I had done for years. And once I could release that, my metabolism started working. And it's so hard as a health practitioner to tell people that, yeah, you're gaining weight because guess what? You hate your life. It's completely out of balance. You're not speaking up for yourself. You're not prioritizing yourself. You're putting everyone before you. You don't even know what real unconditional love is because you're not even showing up as your true, authentic self to be loved and accepted. It's like that was really where my weight gain came from. And once I could really sit in the depths of that and mourn it and be angry about it, I could release it. And now my body's functioning. So it's,
and I think don't discount too, like the hard work you did with your diet. Like you really dialed in your diet. You really committed to your daily workouts. And like, I think we've gotten away from as a society because of the body positivity movement. It's like, nope, you don't want to, count calories and all those things, which I think are important. But if you want to lose weight and have the body you desire, you have to eat very specifically. If you are 40 years old and want to lose 20 pounds, you're going to have to make daily changes. And it's like, people always say, well, I eat cleanly. It's like, what does that even mean? It's like, I watch a lot of people. I'm just such an observer and call it hypervigilance, whatever. But, like people who say, oh, I do all the things, but I'm going to do plastic surgery or whatever to get rid of my bloating belly. And it's like, then you see what they're eating on the weekend. You see what they're unconsciously putting in their mouth at while we're having a dinner party or something. And it's like, that's okay. But like, if you have this goal and you want to lose weight, like you do have to make changes. And so I think the body positivity movement kind of took away from that, like that it's bad to, restrict. I don't think people should be restricting, but like completely change the way they're eating. Maybe you are going to have to do macros temporarily or something like that, which I used to be very against as somebody who had an eating disorder. But like, again, if you are at a certain age and you're overweight, it's not just, I think the mental piece about it is huge. The emotional release piece is huge. And it's a daily choosing of what you're eating and how you're moving
to those foundations, right?
Exactly. Like, always.
Yeah. I think that what I worry about, and I think it, like, to what we're just saying, it's already happening. I feel like there's something happening to just like our internal drive and our internal discipline. Like, oh yeah, I'll just go get an injection. Like, it requires no discipline or self-sacrifice or determination, or like, it requires nothing internally of you to go do the quick fix. And no hate, shade, and judgment. I'm just saying, I feel like as a whole, I worry about what it looks like in the next 10, 15 years when we have no discipline and and it's not always about discipline, but I think it's an important, character trait for certain things.
Well, there's something about earning something. There's something about working hard.
It. Yeah.
Like Jess said, I gave up all processed foods. I gave up all sugar. And that was temporary, but it forced me to realign with my diet, because we can say, oh, I eat super healthy when you're really eating a bunch of gluten-free packaged shit. Right. And then it's like, oh, I'm eating nutrient dense, whole foods, no sugar, nothing out of a package, all of that. And that's something that you can earn, right? You're resetting, you're recalibrating, you're refocusing. And it's like, there's something to be said about when we can earn what we're doing, but it's scary to think about the future because people are just injecting stuff to get the quote unquote health that they want. They're relying on AI to write articles, write books, write social media posts, answer questions from a client, go over labs. And so it almost reminds me of that movie like WALL-E, where like all of those people are just sitting there in these chairs. Lumps.
Yeah. I don't want to discount the people, because I know people listening, I can hear somebody being offended, right? But like, I don't want to discount the people that do truly feel like they've done everything and they're like, you know what, this has changed my life. Yeah. It's gotten me to a point where now I can eat better and I can work out. Yes. And now I have this plan to get off of it. Like, okay, these are tools that we now have. Like,
using it as a tool.
They're not going anywhere. But like, when you're not making the changes, like what's the plan? You're going to take that the rest of your life? Like, I feel like every generation has had its quick fixes and its diet culture, and like, this is our new high-tech diet culture, and I think it's just going to continue. There's going to be an injection and a peptide for every single thing. And like, hey, I'm kind of excited. Like, is there going to be a cure for Alzheimer's, or some of these things that like truly we need cures for? But yeah, I mean, you can't discount what it's becoming. And especially, I mean, I just look around my community and it's alarming, because I live in a community of women that put a lot of time and effort into how they look. And this just can take them from like I wanted to, drop that 5 pounds when they didn't even need to.
Right.
And now we have like emaciation, know?
Right. Yeah. And I think to your point, Jess, I think that's the difference is when you use it not as the solution, but as a tool. Like this is one tool I'm using in my toolbox. I'm doing all these other things and it's a tool I'm using and not like this is the fix that's going to fix everything.
Yes.
And I'm, that there's a difference.
Yes. And like, it's like, I don't know. So to me, it's like, it seems like our generation's like fen,
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
But it's like so none of the things that ever came out as a quick fix and were too good to be true ever. They always came back years later saying, this is not safe. Yeah. We are pulling from the market or, use caution.
Right.
I feel like every single thing.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. It's like all these people that are passionate about holistic health and healing, they're using these GLP-1s. And it's like, if you want to bring up side effects or someone that had a really awful experience or the 30-year-old that just took it to lose weight and now has osteopenia or osteoporosis, it's like, where does that informed consent, like Jess talks about this on her social media, like where is that line? Like all of a sudden now, because this is working for us, we don't want that informed consent. We don't want to hear all of the possible side effects or the long-term effects or the consequences of using this.
When I read comments like on posts that are talking about peptides and the dangers and how everyone's taking it now and everyone's like, super scary thin, like everyone, you'll just see like, you're just a hater, like you're just jealous, like that's what just you want it to or whatever. It's like, no, I could do that if I want to.
Right.
It's like, no, I have genuine concerns. And when I did like this whole series and people were telling me their testimonials, like these were a lot of people who were chronically ill and they took it, like for mast cell and they microdose and they're doing all the right things or whatever and like had really serious consequences.
Yeah. No, I've seen, it is scary. And I've seen those stories. And I think that's the thing. I was reading an article the other day and it was talking about some specific peptides because the fact is like most of them out there right now are literally quote for research purposes. Like they're not even cleared to be used for like, there's no approval for anything. And we don't even know the long-term risk. Then most of them haven't been studied enough, or at least not they're on like rats. Like most of it's studied on rats, right? You can't translate that to human body.
Exactly.
And I think that's the problem is we don't know what the long-term effects are. Like one of them I was reading about, it's like, for, muscle growth. We also don't know, is this going to make cancer cells grow? Like that's terrifying.
Exactly.
To me. I'm sorry.
Exactly. And I think what people don't know, because I said this to a friend who was interested in using one of those, I was like, well, it can increase the rate of growth for cancer cells. And they were like, well, I don't have cancer cells. And it's like, well, you don't know that. Like,
exactly.
Everybody at any given time can have cells that if in the right environment could grow out of control. And it's like, will we know? I don't know. Like, it's just scary. And then people are like stacking like multiple peptides and they're just using like a person that did like a weekend long course, to quote unquote guide them. And I don't know. It's scary.
It is. Yeah. What do you see? So if we're talking about the foundations, right? And I know this also isn't a magic fix because there's never going to be a collective thing where we all want to put in the work. Like it's just not going to happen. What do you think, or what do each of y'all see as like what has to change? And what are the things that are going to cause a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people to kind of wake up and realize like what we're saying, like, okay, it always goes back to the basics, the foundational pieces, right? And these emotional things we're talking about. Like, what do you think has to shift for more people to realize and maybe start going down that path? Like, where does the paradigm shift happen?
I honestly think that if we go back and look at history, a lot of things get so much worse before they get better. And I think if we're talking about what the future looks like, it does look bleak. It looks really disjointed. And I think that is scary. And it's also can provide hope because once we go down those paths and we go to those dark places and we don't find healing, then eventually there's not going to be anything left to try or to trend. It's just going to be okay, well, I guess, there's nothing else for me to do but go back to those foundations. And if I feel like I've already done the foundations, how can I do them differently? How can I really settle in deeper? How can I see if there's anything else that I'm missing? If you're dialed in from a physical level and you feel like your diet's clean and you're hydrated and you've got minerals and your blood sugar's balanced and all of that, then, what are you missing from a mental and emotional place? It's like that room that I talked about that's really, really loud. Eventually you're going to walk out of that room and you're going to have nowhere else to turn but yourself. And I think foundations have been around for a while now. And I think that those are something that don't necessarily go viral or trend, but they're consistent. And I think consistency is something that people are craving. I think consistency is something that people can lean into. And I'm hopeful that, with all the chaos going on in the holistic health community, that there can be people that say, you know what, I'm sick of all of this and I'm just going back to those foundations.
We really saw a shift in 2020. And I think that a lot of people really woke up. And I think that there's more people now that are eating better and wanting to learn. But I think for myself, when I look at the world and I look at those around me, I just think that there's a certain acceptance of there are going to be a majority of people that don't want to play the long game. They're always going to fall prey to the next best thing. And that's just what it is. It's a huge business. Well, the wellness space has become such a moneymaker. And yeah, I think that you're just going to have those people that continue to go on to the next thing. But I think like what's hopeful is that I think the girls that are in their 20s now are not doing the things that I know I was doing in my 20s. They're just doing a lot more plastic Botox and those types of things. But hopefully they're not going to be, hopefully they're not going to be healing from like the foods that we were eating in the 90s and, just some of those things that like a lot of them aren't smoking and drinking. And, I think that you see that shift already in that generation, but I think they're going to have another set of problems because of social media and the internet and not knowing the world before that. So I don't know. I think it's just like, there's just always going to be those who don't want to take the long game, and that's okay. Yeah. There'll always be somebody that finds the right message and wants to dig in and do the work. And I think that they hear that message now. I think that there's enough people that aren't falling prey to some of these things that we've been talking about.
Yeah. I read somewhere yesterday that the wellness space is worth more than the pharmaceutical space. Yep. And people always like to harp on pharmacy. And I'm not, I'm not like, yay, pharmaceuticals. But I think that was a pretty interesting statistic. And this guy that fellow Instagram was talking about it. Like, you want to hate on the pharmaceutical industry, but the wellness space is where it's like, I forget how many trillions that it's worth, but it's evaluated much higher than the pharmaceutical industry. So that, exactly. That tells you something. And yes. I'm not against wellness space either. Obviously we're in it, right? But I think that is a pretty important fact to understand that, like you said, like there's a lot of money here and a lot of people are not doing it. They're not, how do I want to say it? I was trying to say it like in a PC way, but they're just not doing it maybe in the most like honest way. In the most like
conscious way. I think, I don't know that it's like a lack of integrity. I think of some of my friends and it's like, it's not, they don't have integrity. They just don't know better, True. And like, I think that there's so many people that have not walked like a health journey like I've walked. And it's like, it's like you don't know what that's like until you're in it, how that feels to feel that way every day. And like, they don't know. They just want to not be constipated or something, And it's like, it's true. And I just, I don't think that it's a lack of integrity. I think for a lot of people, it's just a lack of understanding. And until you walk that path, like, what does it matter to you? Like you haven't had to fight for your health.
Right.
Or you haven't been desperate. Yet. You haven't been desperate enough where you are willing to try anything and everything and click on a link and buy the course and all of that.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And I think too, a lot of what's in the wellness space is just like a he said, she said thing. It's like, they're just spouting off what they heard somebody else say, whether they're an influencer or not. And it's like, at this point, you don't know what's rooted in science and what's not. And so it's just like a game of telephone, right? And I'm just saying this because I heard somebody else say it and they said, it's like that. To me, that's where it gets really dangerous. And like now you're talking about stuff you really don't even understand. Like, why this
Right.
works or how it works and what, like, it's, yeesh, that's where it gets
Well,
a little-
anybody can be a health professional.
Right.
now.
That's the fact. The fact is, that's the fact.
I mean, I'll be
Yes.
honest, a lot of us know enough to be dangerous. And I
Right.
think that's just how, it's
Right.
a very unregulated
Yes.
world. And people need to understand that as well. It's like, if you're not somebody who's, very versed in holistic health, know who you're getting your information from. I think it's like, people have to learn discernment, which I think is such a hard thing, especially when you don't know what you don't know.
That's
Well,
the
and
thing.
maybe like don't buy supplements from the same person that's sharing links on outfits and shoes
true.
and like hair
good rule of thumb.
products. Like, that could be a starting
Yeah,
point.
the daily groons, that's going to change your life.
That's a good rule of thumb there. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I think that's where it gets a little dicey. And I think what you said, Jess, is the discernment piece. Really, critical thinking and discernment is what I think we're missing in a lot of areas of the world right now. And I think that, social media there's a lot of really great things about it, but I think that's one of the curses of social media is that it's taken away people's ability to think for themselves and have those internal conversations, with themselves, and to have discernment and to think critically about like, oh, does this, I think that is, that's a big piece of it, is having that discernment.
And with social media, it's like we're almost like promoted to live in a vacuum. It's like someone says something that we don't like, we unfollow. Some people, like say something that we love and it like really resonates with us and we're like going to follow them. And we're not only going to follow them, we're going to get fed more information just like it.
Yes.
And
I
so
think,
it
too,
really
it's like-
lacks that critical thinking piece where it's like, I'm in real life, when you're around a group of friends, you're not going to agree with everything that everyone has to say. But that's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we evolve. And when we live in this vacuum where it's like, Ashley said something about worthiness, but she's like, she focuses on physical health, I'm going to unfollow her. It's like that real life doesn't exist like that. We all have friends that we love deeply and also don't agree with everything that they're doing.
Right.
Or
100%.
saying.
Yeah.
I think too, though, like the people that have the largest accounts are people that others view as the most, their word is God, and they're like, if they have a huge account, Huberman, everything he says must be right and true. And like people are growing their health accounts like based on the algorithm and like putting out content and fear porn, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the end all be all and everything they say is something that is going to work for you, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. With the emotional piece, I don't know, everybody listening knows I talk about this all the time, but this is the hard piece. Like Ashley, you were sharing your part of your story where it was all these emotional things that helped you like get your health back on track. What do you think is, because this is, let's be honest, that's the hard piece. Like that's the stuff nobody wants to do. Like, yeah, we can change our diet and go work out. Like that's fine. But it's that deep emotional stuff, which, we all know that that's really the root cause of everything that's happening on the physical bodies. I talk about that a lot in the show. If we're looking to that, like here's a missing piece, and maybe this is one of those missing pieces. Like if everybody would just, dive into this type of inner work, like this emotional work, that we could maybe get out of this mindset of needing the quick fix and all that. What do you think are some things that we could do, the general population could do to be able to tune into that side of things?
I think it really takes quieting the noise. I think it takes curiosity, like I always tell my clients, be really curious about what you're feeling and how you're thinking and how you're triggered. Sometimes our triggers can be our greatest treasures because they're highlighting something inside of ourselves that wants to be healed. And we love to blame other people. We love to put that feeling on, or that responsibility on, someone else and say, well, it's the way that my husband said that to me, or it's the way that my mom's super condescending when she talks to me, or it's, the fact that I got ignored or off the invitation list or whatever. And I think if we can approach those things from a more curious place, then we can see that there's really things that want to be tended to. And that's generally how it gets our attention, is because we're triggered. We have a charge, we have a feeling within ourselves. And I think that's something that everyone can pay more attention to. You know, it's easy to say, oh, well, this person hurt me, or this person was rude, or this person sucks. But it's like, well, where in yourself did it land? Where is the place within you that is begging for attention? And a lot of times we just don't pay attention to what we're feeling. We don't pay attention to, oh, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm confused, I feel unsafe. And if we can pay attention to those things, typically our feelings, they rise and they have a peak and then they fall. But we are not taught to be with our feelings. We're not taught to get curious. And so we think, oh my gosh, if I feel that sadness, it's going to swallow me whole, and then I'm going to be done. And that's going to be it. That's going to be the end of me. And I really don't think that that's rooted in reality. And I think that when we can be more curious and gain more capacity to hold ourselves and to tend to the things that are flagging, that need attention, we can just get greater awareness on ourselves and what needs to be healed.
That's so good. There, a coach of mine uses a story about that. Like when you get bumped and you have a cup of coffee in your hand, you get bumped and you're like, oh crap. Well, I spilled my coffee because that person bumped into me. No, you spilled your coffee because that's what was in your cup. Like that's why you spilled the coffee. Wow. And I love that metaphor to illustrate exactly what you're talking about. It's like, okay, you're triggered. Well, yeah, it's because this person did this or this person. And it's like, well, no, like what's inside that, like you said, maybe needs your attention, that wants to come out. That's why you got triggered. So I think you're right. I think it kind of goes along the lines of like toxic positivity, right? If you just, good vibes only. And that's not the best place to be. Like you said, like we have to sit with the, all the harder emotions and the easier emotions, right? And I think that's where a lot of us can miss the mark, because it's not as fun sitting in the sadness or sitting in the grief or sitting in the,
Right. And I think it's important to pay attention. I had to really get real with myself that when I didn't want to feel something uncomfortable, I found myself scrolling Instagram and just like using that almost as like an emotional pacifier as an adult to spiritually bypass what I was actually wanting attention. Yep. Exactly.
Yep.
And I am such a good disassociator. And so you give me a tool like Instagram and it's like, oh, I don't have to feel shit. Like I don't have to feel anything. I can just like coast through this scroll. And when we can pause enough to say, what am I avoiding? Or what am I not wanting to do right now? Or what am I not wanting to feel right now? I think that can be really helpful to kind of put the brakes on things and use that also as an opportunity to come back to ourselves.
So good. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Jess?
I think it's hard for people to like start to understand, especially if you're coming from like suddenly your health is declining. You get into a holistic health world, you're relying on supplements and the surface level things. I just think it takes a certain amount of time for somebody to get to that point where they're like, okay, this isn't working, and start looking within themselves and within their life. Yeah. And how did you get here? I think it's really helpful to ask yourself, how did I get here?
That's good point.
And kind of start peeling back those layers of your timeline of your life story and like, when did this start? And okay, well, maybe why did that happen? And maybe you need a professional to walk through that, probably likely. But also I think it's just slowing down, like starting to slow down in your life. Why are we disassociating? Why are we making ourselves busy all the time? It's so we don't have to stop and feel. And I think the more you can start slowing down, the more awareness you can start having into, oh, wait, why did I make that choice? Oh, it's because of this. And start choosing differently. But that's impossible to do if you have no awareness and you have no ability to actually sit and be a little reflective about why you choose the way why you act the way you do, or choose the things that you do. Yeah. I think everybody needs to slow down. It's like people who don't even need to hurry somewhere are hurried, especially this time of year. It's like this collective, like ridiculous expectation that everybody should be busy. And, it's like you could be so busy in your day, but there's always moments to just take a beat, take some breaths. Like, I don't think everyone wants to or needs to go do this huge emotional excavation their whole life, but you can start with just some really simple, basic foundational nervous system practices that can just help you regulate yourself a little bit more, help you, you have a stress response, come back and regulate and, calm that instead of getting stuck in a place of constant fight or flight or shut down. It's just learning to regulate in those hard moments and taking a beat when you have stressful time to recover, get back to baseline.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are so good. From both of y'all, what we're all saying here, I think slowing down and like creating space, like I don't think we can overemphasize those two things. And as simple, and it's like we said before, people don't want to do the bit. It's boring. It's not the fun stuff to talk about. But the slowing down and the creating space to just be, because like both of y'all are saying, and I've said before on the show, most of us do keep busy because we don't know what's going to come up if we slow down and listen to what, the thoughts in our head or what needs our attention. And I think that is probably the thing that's driving chronic illness the most is we just 100%. Don't take the time to listen, right? So if we could slow down, if we could actually take the space to listen and like be in quiet and in stillness, that's as boring as it might sound. I really feel like that could be the answer for everything, honestly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. This is so good, y'all. I know we could go for hours on this because we just have so much to talk about. This was so good. I think this is such a great conversation that I think is so needed right now. I know the listeners are, conscious women that are wanting to learn. And I think this is such a great space for them to be able to learn that discernment and start to hear things that maybe they didn't want to hear, maybe they needed to hear. So I appreciate y'all giving your honest answers and takes and sharing all of your insights. This has been so good.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
And I have one more question for each of you I like to ask as I wrap up every episode. And whoever wants to go first can go first. But what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
I think for me, it's learning to truly connect with others, whether that's your husband or your children or your friends or a parent or a loved one. I think that too many of us are living lonely and isolated because we're so guarded or have such an inability to be vulnerable and intimate. I think for me, that has been giving me purpose in my life lately is learning to be truly intimate with my loved ones.
I love that so much. When you first asked the question, I thought of like, how are we supposed to know our purpose when we don't even know ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think I recently heard that like when we're 0 to 8 years old, we're kind of in this hypnotic state where we're downloading things that we see, things that we feel, things that we experience. And I think from my experience, when I got into my late 20s and early 30s, and especially in the 40s, you start saying, well, what do I want to do? Like, how do I want to show up? What do I actually want to give to the world? What is my purpose? What is my plan? What are my gifts? And I think that takes some excavation, within yourself. You kind of have to practice that discernment piece that we spoke about. Like, is this actually mine? Or is this motivated by some wound inside of me or something that I'm trying to prove? So I think purpose, to be aligned with your own purpose, I think you really have to be aligned with yourself and, what those gifts are that you came into this world to share.
Those were such good answers, y'all. Thank you. Thank y'all for sharing that. I love both of those and I love talking with y'all. And thank you. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on.